Well, as ISIS inspires attacks from Orlando to Paris, some leaders say it's time to cut off the terrorist lifeblood. The goal? Targeting their money to shut down the propaganda machine that fuels terrorism around the world. CBN Middle East Bureau Chief Chris Mitchell has more.
Find the source of a problem, and you can usually solve it. Some contend the international community needs to attack ISIS at its source by following the money trail and cutting it off.
This concept of ignoring them, acting like they're not existing, having the political correctness to not even use the term war on terrorism has led to a strategy that hasn't worked.
Representative Randy Forbes says going after the funding would curtail their training and growth.
If you take away the funding from terrorist organizations, it's like pulling the oxygen out of a room. They shrivel up and die.
Any prosecutor in New York investigating Islamic State, the first thing we do is to check the money. Where the money is coming from? Who is buying the oil? And no one is doing that here. Or it's worse. There are allegations that people in Turkey is buying the oil, and we are doing nothing because Turkey is an ally.
And it's not just oil. For more than a decade, experts have urged the U.S. and Europe to take on international smuggling.
There is a Balkan route that is known for drug smuggling, arms smuggling, human trafficking.
28 billion terror dollars a year come from drug trafficking, according to the UN. Most comes from opium grown in Afghanistan that feeds the worldwide heroin epidemic.
And it's not only affecting Europe, but the same heroin ends up in the United States. So it has a dual effect of wiping out a population through heroin, but also the terrorist attacks that are certainly clear and present dangers to citizens in Europe and the United States.
Born in Croatia, Natasha Srdoc is a former corporate banker. Srdoc and former business executive Joel Anand Samy are behind an effort to combat corruption and organized crime in the post-communist Balkan region. The Balkans, especially Croatia, Serbia, and Bosnia, are among the worst places for smuggling.
There's no rule of law. These countries don't have the rule of law. There are no independent judiciaries, and there's a very strong coexistence of organized crime and political corruption.
This map shows the two main heroin routes out of Afghanistan. One goes north to Russia, the other south through Iran and Turkey, into the Balkans, and then the rest of Europe. Then there's the massive arms trade.
We see that arms supplies for terrorism are coming from the Balkans, because it has been reported that in 2 Paris attacks in 2015 and the recent Brussels attacks, they had Kalashnikovs that came from the Balkans. Different reports were stating that there are some 4,000 military-grade arms available in the black market, I think just in Paris.
And our concern is that it is going to be so easy for WMD, weapons of mass destruction, from the region, or even beyond, say, Afghanistan, Pakistan, to come through the Balkans into European capitals, or even worse, transported to the United States.
Srdoc and Anand Samy say establishing some Western-style rule of law in the Balkans would help stop the cash flow. They add, however, it will take principled leadership, not political expediency in the West, to make it work. Chris Mitchell, CBN News, Jerusalem.